So the answer to number 7 on page 13 of section 2.3 will be parallel, because just as we showed at the end of the last video, the two slopes are the same. If the two slopes are the same, the lines are parallel. So now would be a good time. Well, actually, 8's a little tricky. Let's do 8 together, and then you can try 9. How about that? Okay, so when I look at L1, I see it's not solved for y, so I know that's going to be step 1 is get y alone for number 8. So to get y alone, I have to do the opposite, just like we learned in our very first section on the first day. Do the opposite to move it across the equal sign, so negative 4x plus 4x, 0. So we get 9y equals, and remember we want our x term first, so it looks like y equals mx plus b. But you need to be careful. You carry the sign in front of it with it. So it's a positive 4x and a negative 1. Don't write negative 4x plus 1. That would be wrong. 4x is positive and 1 is negative. Then divide everything by 9. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So it's looking like y equals, and that's 1y, 4/9 x minus 1/9. So it's looking like this one has a slope of 4/9. Okay, so that part wasn't tricky. This is the tricky one. A lot of students don't know what x equals 5 graph says. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint. So here's the coordinate plane. X is the horizontal axis, y is the vertical axis. Notice how this looks different than all the other lines. This line has an x and a y. This line has an x and a y. This line has an x and a y. This line only has an x. What does that tell me? That tells me it's a special case. It's either vertical or horizontal. Those are the special cases. So how do I know which it is? Well, this tells us which axis it passes through. So if it passes through 5 on the x-axis, it's going to be vertical. So this means it only passes through the x-axis, and it passes through at 5. See how it never touches the y-axis? It doesn't have a y variable, so it only goes through the x-axis. That means it's vertical. So that's the first tricky part, is understanding that it's vertical. The next thing, your work part, is, okay, so what's the slope of any vertical line? Slope is, can I ski on this? No, skiing, undefined. You guys remember that from the last section? So this slope is undefined. The other slope is 4/9. So then we have to ask ourselves, okay, are the slopes the same? Absolutely not. Are they opposites and reciprocals? No. So what's our only choice? Our only choice is neither, because they're not the same and they're not reciprocals and opposites. So that's our only, it's like by process of elimination, you get that. This would have to be 4/9 and this would have to be 4/9. To be perpendicular, this would have to be 4/9 and this would have to be negative 9/4. So since it's not this and not this, by process of elimination, it's neither. Okay, so now the next one is perfect for you to practice on, because neither equation is solved for y, so they both take a little bit of algebra, which will be good practice. So go ahead and shut off your video and try number 9 on your own first. Okay, so our number one goal, remember, is to make both of our lines look like y equals mx plus b. So to get y alone here, I'm going to have to subtract 7x, because I need the x on the other side, and right now it's a positive 7x, so do the opposite, subtract. So then what I get is negative 5y equals negative 7x and positive 9. Remember, don't combine those two. They're not like terms, but we do want to switch the order, so we carry the sign with it. So negative 7x, 9 doesn't have a sign, so that means it's positive 9. And here's where the tricky thing comes in. Everything gets divided by negative 5, so hopefully you were really careful with your signs when you did this. So those two negatives become a positive, those two negatives become a positive, and then this one will just bump up. So our final form is going to be y equals, because that's positive 1y, which is just y, equals positive 7/5 x and negative 9/5. So a positive divided by negative just made it negative. So now I can see easily that this slope is 7/5. So if my next line has a slope of 7/5, they're going to be parallel. If my next line has a slope of negative 5/7, they're going to be perpendicular. And if my next line doesn't have 7/5 or negative 5/7, then I pick neither. So let's see what we get here. So for this line, I need to subtract 5x, because remember, my goal is to make both lines look like y equals mx plus b. So then this line turns into 7y equals negative 5x positive 4. Negative 5x positive 4. So switch the order, because you want it to look like y equals mx plus b, but carry its signs with it. Then divide everything by 7, divide by 7, divide by 7, and we get y equals, and that's 1y, negative 5/7. Ding, ding, ding. That means it's going to be perpendicular, right? Isn't that what we said earlier? If it's the opposite, this one's positive, this one's negative, reciprocal 7/5, 5/7, boom, we can go up here and circle perpendicular. So they are opposites and they are reciprocals. So those are kind of fun, right? Okay, use the slope-intercept form to find an equation of the line with slope 5 passing through negative 212. So the first thing I notice when I see that is I go, oh, slope-intercept form. So let's write it out. Y equals mx plus b, to keep our eye on the prize there. So one thing at a time. We're supposed to be using this form, and we need to put this in for the slope. So that would be m, and then this would be our x and our y, right? So x and y. So we're going to write 12 equals, in place of m, 5, in place of x, negative 2, and we're going to use this to find our b. And a lot of students write this next step. What is this? Negative 10, and they go, oh, b's 2. Well, you can't combine these if they're on different sides of the equal. To find b, you need to get b alone, so you have to do the opposite to bring that over. So plus 10 plus 10. So don't do sloppy math. Make sure if you're solving for b, you get b alone, which means do the opposite to move the other over. So b isn't 2, b is 22. And to write the equation of a line, remember we need to know M and B. So do we know them now? M is 5, B is 22, so aren't we ready to write our equation? So y equals, in place of M, 5x plus 22. So that's called writing an equation of a line. So you find the M, you find the B, you plug them in, and that's my equation. So these are only used to help us find the B. We don't put them in the next answer because an equation has an X and a Y in it. So we just plug in the M and the B. Okay, let's do one more and then you guys can practice on one. So again, it says use slope-intercept form to write an equation. So that's the same thing we did here. Use slope-intercept form to write an equation. So like I said, the minute I see those directions, I do y equals mx plus b. I write it down and then I can start plugging. So it says 0 slope. So my m is going to be 0. And this is my x. And this is my y. And points are always alphabetical order. So the first coordinate's always x, the second's always y. So in place of y, I'm putting 8 from over here. In place of m, I'm putting 0. In place of x, I'm putting 7. And I'm trying to find b. So 0 times 7 is 0. 0 plus b is b. So 0 plus b is just b. Anything added to 0 just gives you that back. So do I know my two ingredients? My m and my b? I do. Look at, there's my m. Whoops, excuse me. Here's my m. There's my b. So plug them in. Y equals 0x plus 8. So once I find my m and b, then I put them in here and here. So I put 0 in for m, 8 in for b. But that's not really simplified, and that's not really how you'd see something. 0 times anything is 0. So this is how you would see this equation in a textbook. And you look at it and go, oh, 0 slope, 0 fun. This is a horizontal line. Horizontal lines are 0 fun to ski on. Plus, if it only goes through the y-axis, wouldn't that make it a horizontal line? So let's make a note of that just so you recognize it. And you're probably like, how did she know that? Because it only has one letter. Remember when I said any equation that has only one variable is either going to be horizontal or vertical. And the slope gives it away. 0 slope, 0 fun. That means it's horizontal. Okay, your turn. So go ahead and turn off the video and then join back up with me and we'll check your work. Okay. So use slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So here's my m, here's my x, here's my y. So y is 4, m is 5 over 2, x is negative 4 plus b. So don't fret about this, easy to do on the calculator. So it'd be 5 fraction bar 2 times negative 4. And can you see that? Yep. So negative 10. So 4 equals negative 10 plus b. We need to find out what b is, so get b alone by doing the opposite and moving everything to the other side. So my answer is going to be y equals 5 halves x plus 14.